Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Christina Kishimoto with The Stories We Tell. I am so excited because my guest today is Sarah Trueblood, and she's a principal, a school principal. What more honorable position than a school principal in public education today? So, Sarah, welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
So I'm excited because it's on multiple fronts, right? You are a school principal and you have been a multi-generation educator from your own family from Indiana, and you have this deep story there. You're also a student at USC, a doctoral student. You just defended your dissertation. My God, what was that like?
It was very exciting and a big relief when it was over, but very exciting. I was very excited that I feel that the research that I did was really impactful. So I'm excited to share that with you today.
So full disclosure, I'm actually your dissertation chair, so I am really excited for you as well. I'm so proud of all of our USC students, but I'm actually really proud of the number of women in this country who are getting their doctorate degrees. It's when you look at the number of women serving the superintendency who have a doctorate degree, it's a much greater percentage than men serving the superintendency with a doctorate degree. Now, I want men to succeed as well, but I'm just so proud of the way in which women have figured out how to raise families, how to have a job, how to get their doctorate degree, and also care for aging families as well. What was that like for you, kind of juggling all of that?
Well, it was, I do have a 3-year-old daughter, so it was quite a challenge. I had a lot of help. My husband, we just organized our week so that there was a really routine schedule there. And I had some friends with young teenagers that helped babysit. So I just had to pull together all my resources and make it happen. But I wanted to do this before she got too much older and she was going to be too busy and involved. So I wanted to capture this time while I could before she got too much older.
Well, what an example, you're playing for her in terms of having your doctorate degree and leading in such an important role nationally. I'd love to talk to you about your research though, because I'm very passionate about multilingualism. And so when you and I started working together and I'm reading through your study, I said, we have to talk a little more about why it's so important to pay attention to what's happening to long-term English language learners and the kind of supports they need. Why did you choose this topic? Why is it so important to you?
Well, I was a middle school teacher initially, and in the classroom, it was always something I started working on, learning some strategies for how to really organize my lesson plans to be impactful. Over time, then as I became an instructional leader, uh, at a middle school where 30% of our students at the current middle school I'm at are still designated as English learners, whether they're just a few years new to the country or they're long-term English learners, that's a huge percentage of our school. And so we have to spend a lot of time ensuring that they are set up for success. So that is one of the primary instructional focus that we have here at my school. And of course, I have a wonderful team that I hope to get to talk a little bit more about their role and how they help us organize that work and all that data monitoring, because it is a heavy load.
What was interesting is the research, the long-term research has been very compelling that if you exit a student receiving language services earlier, before, especially before high school, that they perform better in high school. And in fact, they outperform their peers. I mean, that's an
Absolutely.
interesting finding.
Absolutely. One of the things we really want to do is set the students up for success so they have access to all of those college and career pathways in the high school. We have some terrific engineering programs, biotech programs, and the visual media arts programs. And so we really, if the students don't have exit their reclassification by the time they leave middle school, they are still stuck with having to have a second hour of English. And so in San Diego Unified School District, we have a district policy that students in middle school, if they have not yet been reclassified, they have to take a second hour of English. And in a 6-period day, then they are limited to not having one of the access to the elective courses, the arts, the gateways to technology, music. And so we've been trying to figure out ways to have kids experience those explorations so that they can grow in their identity and find out what they're interested in. And so that's the hard part, is then those students have an inequitable experience at middle school if they're required to take that second language, our English, but they do need that. So how can we figure out ways to support them, but also give them the opportunity to grow in who they are?
So that's so fascinating, because the fact is that kids come to school, especially during the adolescence, to connect, to explore, to learn new things. They're not necessarily going there to learn English to then have access. They want access, right? At the same time that they want to hone all their language skills. And so I love that mindset that you bring to your leadership. And it is a mindset shift, isn't it? How did you work with your staff to say, look, this isn't about learning English to then have access. This is about having access and taking care of the whole child, and what brings them excitement about learning as we also develop their language.
Well, I think one of the most important things that the teachers needed to know and understand was the limitations that the students have when they leave middle school and haven't yet been reclassified. It sort of put the pressure on us to really take a look at what can we do better in our literacy programs to ensure that we have all the right strategies in place for them. And then how can we adjust and offer programs in different times of the day so students can still have those experiences. One of the things we're looking at is how to adjust our master schedule. That we are bound to our contract with our teachers and their union around that, but there's ways that we can work together. But I think it's really coming down to when we prioritize what's best for kids, then people are able to move in the right direction. And so that's the conversations we've been having and trying to work on. And we've been exploring other examples that different schools have adjusted in their master schedule, their course schedule, in order to ensure that students have those opportunities.
What Sarah, what you're fundamentally talking about is making sure that policy that is meant to address one area of need doesn't get in the way of understanding holistically what a child needs. And it's, it's the thing about policy, right? Policy can be a stronghold that keeps us from doing the right things because it's singular, right? In its intention. Providing more time for English language development, right? In isolation doesn't make sense. So I love that whole perspective you're bringing in the way you're working with staff around that whole mindset piece. I think one of the things that I wonder about is, even as a college student myself growing up and studying this area and finding that since the 1960s, we've been talking about these conditions we need to really support a much more multilingual approach in this nation. Why is it so hard to put these conditions in place? Why are we still talking about this now instead of being a world leader in multilingual education out of the United States, where we have this diverse community?
Well, absolutely. I think one of the things I realize now where I am in my career in a community that is so multilingual, I'm the one with the deficit. I don't have the second language background. I depend on my colleagues. My associate principal is a Spanish speaker. And if it wasn't for her and our partnership to be able to plan together, to work together and communicate, then we wouldn't be successful at all in the school. And so I think it's really important that we think about ways to start requiring students to have a second language, not and think of it more as that assets-based opportunity. One of the other unique things that's just getting off the ground here in our school district is trying to create pathways where students, by the time they graduate high school, if they are multilingual, that they leave with a certification with to be a translator, so they can be working as translators post high school right away. And so these are some very exciting times to try to really lift that second language opportunity for students.
What's interesting is every, competitive field, whether it's business or engineering, finance, all of these areas, those companies that represent the work that's coming out of the field, those fields and the innovations in those fields, or are seeking multi-language speakers because they need to communicate across countries, right? We are a global economy, and yet our policies around language development in this nation just haven't moved enough. We've been very much at the fringes. We still graduate with students coming out of 12, 13 years of public education without the ability to speak more than one language in a nation that is so rich with languages.
Absolutely. I know one of the interesting things as I start to look for placement of my daughter going into, the public school system is actually it's the limited opportunities we do have for students to be in dual immersion programs and biliteracy programs. I'm actually having to, apply way ahead of time because we're fighting for a spot. So it's really exciting that there are those programs, but it is very limited. And so you have to really take advantage of them as they come your way.
So it's interesting, right? You're advocating for this as a principal, you're looking at the policy construct, then you're trying to apply this at home as well, where you
Mhm.
see the value of your child growing up multi-literate, to be competitive, right? And also to be able to communicate with many more people by being able to utilize these different languages. One of the things that I've been paying a lot of attention to is Secretary Cardona, our current U.S. Secretary of Education, who speaks a lot about the value of multilingualism for economic growth and development, to just globalization, right? The way in which we interact and reach out across the globe around all kinds of issues that we need to work together around. Is there, if you had a message for him, is there something that you would want from the federal level that would help to advance, accelerate, and finally put the conditions in place for all students to be multiliteral in this country?
Absolutely. I believe that we need to start making it a requirement that students have a second language that they're learning throughout their whole career in our schools. I think we're not giving it enough emphasis when you think about it's not just a soft skill anymore. It's a skill that all of these students can take with them. The students who are translating for their parents, they're going to doctors' offices, they're helping them fill out applications. They really are doing high level skilled work in two different languages in those opportunities. And I think the more we can celebrate that and find ways to require that, then I think we're going to have a lot more successful kids prepared to be ready for their college and career.
And the irony of students translating for their parents is that there are so many businesses that aren't ready to provide the translations, including our own schools. And so, and yet we're a country rich with languages. And so, it's time to start moving in a different direction in terms of this policy. I'm going to close this out by asking you the question that I have to ask you, to see, have you been thinking about how AI, artificial intelligence, could potentially be a tool that we can use to really step up language acquisition in this country?
Well, I see it being used in our schools every day. Actually, our students are translating their homework and getting things. When I write a letter, the first thing I do is have it automatically translated in AI. But you still have to have the skilled expert, right? That does the editing, that does the background check on everything. And there's always a few issues with that, but I think it's a really helpful tool. It's definitely helped us communicate faster and in more ways than just try. And we don't have to wait for someone to send it out to translation back. So it is a really useful tool that we have been applying already. So
Well,
I'm all
I'm looking forward to seeing where we go with this tool and the ways it can advance. I mean, there's lots of discussions about just entry level new language kind of development, being able to fully do that using AI, and then being able to tap our teachers to do more higher level language instruction. That's so exciting. Sarah, thank you so much for being with me. I'm so excited for you. I love your research topic. I love your expertise in this area, and just thank you, because one thing I was very moved by is your passion for the principalship, and we need principals who really are paying attention to how do we do education better for every child in this nation. So thank you for serving in this way.
well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thinking.